Hello, my beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Woman to Woman with Joanne. Today, we are so excited to share our guest with you, Miss CJ Fox. She is a tax advisor. She is an aspiring author, currently writing the book, Obliterate the Odds. She also grew up in foster care, and she now shares her story to encourage and inspire others and to raise awareness to help you discover your role in foster care. So y'all help me welcome the lovely Miss CJ Fox. So you guys, we are here with the lovely Miss CJ Fox, and I'm so excited to share her story with you guys. Welcome, CJ, to Woman with Joanne.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you for coming and being willing to, share your story to encourage women all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
So our first question on Woman to Woman with Joanne is always, where were you born and raised in this lovely state of Mississippi?
I was born in Flowood, and
awesome.
lived in Jackson for quite a while, and moved all over Mississippi. I lived in Alabama. I was in foster care in Alabama. Lived in Las Vegas. So I've have a little bit of experiences of different cultures from all over the nation. It's really kind of neat. But Mississippi is certainly my home.
Awesome. Awesome. So when you said you moved all around, but you grew up here in Mississippi, is that right?
Yeah.
So kind of talk to us about your experience growing up in Mississippi. And it's not I don't even know if rhetorical is the right word that I want to use, but it's just, Mississippi is always shown in a negative light when people come and they try to tell our stories for us. And so the goal is just to show Mississippi the way you see it, how you experienced it. And that's it, whether good or bad. So talk to us about your experience growing up here in Mississippi.
Yeah, absolutely. Growing up here, I've always was very heavily involved, obviously, in school because that's where I felt the safest. And having teachers and coaches along the way to help me prepare for life in general was just an amazing blessing. And then, it's funny because as I was growing up, I swore I would never live here. You could not pay me enough money to raise my children here, but lo and behold, here I am, and I'm raising three beautiful children here, and I don't really see myself going anywhere else.
Right. I tell my children are like, Mom, why won't you leave Mississippi? Baby, Mississippi is home.
Exactly.
I don't want to go anywhere else unless the Lord leads. And I'm like, Lord, you don't want me to go nowhere. I love Mississippi. It's home. It really is.
Absolutely.
So, in reading a little bit about your story, I read that you were in foster care. You were in foster care, and that's where you grew up. So can you talk to us a little bit about your experience growing up in the foster care system? What was that like for you?
Sure. So I was about 8 years old. The week before I turned 8, my stepfather at the time was actually, he passed away, violently passed away, just put it that way. And from there, my father had moved to Birmingham, Alabama. And my mom, because she was so traumatized by losing my stepdad, I ended up going to live with my father in Alabama. And that is actually where I was a ward of the state in foster care in Birmingham and Hoover and the surrounding areas. Yeah. And so, staying in group homes and, different houses and things, I ended up staying in about 4 different homes while I was there. And I stayed there for about a year, so it wasn't very long. But I guess the real story is going to be, after I moved back to Mississippi with my mom, it was never really that steady either. I was with aunts, I was with my friends' parents who took me in, and eventually I just graduated high school at 16. I said, I've got to get out of here. You guys are crazy. I'm out.
Yeah.
So I ended up taking my junior courses during the day and my senior courses at night, and had $25 in my pocket when I stepped foot on Mississippi State's campus.
Oh, wow.
And it was just a blessing. I go back to the hospitality of the state of Mississippi. The dean at that time, and I wish I could remember his name, I walked into his office one day and I said, I really want to be here. I really do. But I had no idea what books were going to cost or, school supplies or anything like that. And when I realized I was going to have to buy my books, and they were well over $500.
Wow.
He just looked at me and he said, go get your books. Here are some vouchers. And it just set me on a path of of success from there. So I was
Right.
really thankful for that. So
That's awesome. So tell me, you went to Mississippi State?
I did, yeah.
Awesome.
Hill State, go dogs.
Go dogs. Awesome. Well, talk to me a little bit, CJ, about the work that you do. You do speaking engagements and things like that. Well, pre-COVID and
Right.
starting back again, but just encouraging people about the role that they can play in foster care. So kind of talk with us about the role that we can play to help, bring awareness to foster care and things like that. Talk with us a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah. So, I always say everyone has a role in foster care, whether that's, you become a respite home for a foster parent who, might be traveling, or you just want to help them, take a load off and kind of help them with that foster child, taking them meals or, donating your clothes to a foster closet, if you will. There's just so many different things, from the small items to becoming a full-fledged, foster parent, and then even fostering to adopt,
Right.
and everywhere in between, And I think if we look closely enough, we know someone around us who is at least thinking about it, or we certainly know someone who's heard of foster care, right?
Yes,
and understand that
definitely.
it's a pandemic. I mean,
Yes.
I guess you could say it's a pandemic.
It is.
It's just, we have so many children right now in foster care and so many ready to be adopted.
Yes.
And the more that we can raise awareness and understand where everybody is in their place in foster care, in that community, the more that we can help these kids,
Right.
in that situation.
Right. So I would like to talk about, and we may have to talk just a little bit and take a break, but I want to talk about children what happens when they age out of the foster care system.
That's a big one. So there aren't that many programs out there for foster children who have aged out, unfortunately. I think that there's a lot of people who are trying to create some of those programs because they've realized that once a child ages out of foster care, the statistics are just very alarming.
Yeah.
2 out of 3 foster children within a year of aging out end up in jail, dead, or they're on drugs. I mean, it's
Wow.
just, that's a problem. And this is our
Yes.
youth. I mean, this is our future that we're talking about here. And when they're in foster care prior to age 18, there's little things that we don't think about, such as, how are we going to get them a driver's license? Who's going
Yes.
to take on that role of insuring them as a foster child when they are technically under the state's regulations, right?
Right.
So if they don't have a job, if they don't, they can't drive to, where they need to go, just simple things like that. How can we, transition them into adulthood properly?
Right.
There needs to be more programs after 18 to get them into college or some sort of, job training.
Trade school or
trade
something.
school.
Yeah. Okay. Well, CJ, we're going to come back and we're going to continue to talk about that. Okay, y'all, we're going to take a short break. We will be right back with more Woman to Woman with Joanne.
During a public health crisis, it can be hard for those facing domestic abuse to know what to do. Being confined in the same space as an abuser can increase threats to safety, and leaving an abusive relationship during a crisis can be even more difficult than normal. You can help. Ask them how they want to connect and be creative. Be supportive and believe them. Help them think through how to stay safe. Following these tips, you can help victims of domestic violence stay safe during COVID-19.
The Stephen James Foundation presents the 5th annual Old School Party with a Purpose. Saturday, May 29th at the Mississippi Trademark Center in Jackson. And on the deck, it's DJ Kid Capri.
Hands DJ in the lane.
And the legendary Goody Mob. Grab your old school gear and mask up. COVID guidelines strictly enforced. It's DJ Kid Capri and Goody Mob at the 5th annual Old School Party with a Purpose. Saturday, May 29th at the Mississippi Trademark Center in Jackson. Benefiting Stupid Community Services. Get tickets now at eventbrite.com.
Okay, you guys, we are back with the lovely Miss CJ Fox, and we're still talking about the foster care system. So, CJ, when we went on break, we were talking about children who age out of the foster care system, and there not being a lot of programs to help them. What is it that we can do to kind of help put plans in place or programs in place? Who's responsible for that? All of us? What do we do? How do we fix that?
Well, that's one of the things that we're trying to put together. We have a community of foster care leaders, and we've come together to create a conference. It's called Fostering Unity.
Awesome.
And we had our first virtual meeting last year, and it went really well.
Great.
And we're having another one in October, particularly in North Mississippi. We have a church to host it. But it's things like that when we can all come together and say, okay, we have a foster care closet, we have a church, we have extra funds that go towards beds or whatever it is that a foster parent might need, or even just sharing those stories for people who are thinking about foster care but may not know how to get that process started. The purpose of those conferences, again, is to just have all those people there in one room. So, like I said, whoever's interested can just, say, okay, I'm interested in adoption, or I'm interested in, I'm a woodworker and I would love to make bunk beds for foster parents, or even biological homes. Sometimes a family may only need a bed to keep their children in their home, just something that simple. Again, it's just having those conferences and trying to just immerse yourself in people who are also involved. But realistically, what you can do today is literally, go to Google and type in, foster care Mississippi, and there's the Heart Gallery. You can see all of the children that are ready to be adopted.
Awesome.
All of the resources that you might need to, contact somebody just to ask questions. There's a Facebook group called The Loop that has tons of foster parents on there, and you just reach out to any of them, and they would love to speak to people about their experiences.
Right. Awesome. Well, I do want to talk a little bit, CJ, if you're open to talk to us about your experience growing up in foster care. How was it? What was that experience growing up?
Yeah, sure, certainly. Prior to foster care, it was still really unstable. So I would live with my grandparents or aunts or babysitters. But and most of those homes were, I guess, sound and stable. Some weren't. But when I got to foster care, I stayed in a few group homes and ended up, my last placement was with two parents. So they just fostered kids pretty regularly. But when you're growing up in that situation, you don't really know any differently. You just think that's normal. But I do remember, feeling a sense of loneliness and needing to be cared for in some way. And I remember being at the schoolhouse, which was right next to the group home. And it was all of the kids in that home. We were just in one room in the schoolroom, and you might have been in kindergarten, you might have been a senior in high school.
Wow.
But yeah, all of the schoolwork was done in that one room.
Wow.
And there was a girl there, and she was a little bit older than I was, maybe 16. And she built this beautiful 2-story home out of popsicle sticks. And she cut out old fabric and made the drapes and the little rugs in the floor. And it was just the coolest thing to me. And I remember looking at that going, gosh, I want that. I want that home. I want that sense of security.
Right.
I couldn't articulate that back then, but I just remember feeling like I just needed that. And I ended up getting that one day. The next placement, like I said, was a mom and a dad. And when I got there, I was not reading on the reading level that I needed to. I was very nervous. I was just a very nervous kid. I was always scared of everything around me. And they just, they were so patient with me.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you their names. I don't know what they look like. I have no idea. I couldn't pick them out of a lineup.
Right.
But there's a really cool quote that Maya Angelou said, was that people will forget what you said, they will forget what you did. but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
That's right.
And I can tell you, my foster parents made me feel loved.
Awesome. That's awesome.
I know, unfortunately, a lot of other foster kids may not have that same experience. And of course, I did have some very traumatic things happen to me, but that was outside of foster care.
Yeah.
But growing up in foster care, that was actually, for me, probably one of the best experiences, because I still remember them teaching me how to read. And
Awesome.
that was the first time I picked up chapter books and just felt that sense of confidence. So
Awesome. That is awesome. And I know there's when people get ready to adopt or anything, most people are looking for babies. How often do you get teenagers? Is it often that teenagers get adopted, or?
no, it's not.
know.
You're exactly right. Most people want to start fostering or adopting with infants or toddlers. And I think I would have to check the statistic on this, but it's like 5% of teenagers after 12 years old are actually adopted. So a lot of them are going to age out without any families.
Wow. Wow. Whew.
Yeah,
You
it's
know,
pretty heavy.
It is. So I know you said the Unity, foster care Unity.
Fostering Unity.
Fostering Unity is working on things like that. And I guess just really wanting to see how we can get involved. I know myself, we work with a group of young ladies at Sunnybrook Children's Home, just to encourage them and keep them uplifted, and just give them an ear to let them know somebody is listening, somebody cares about them, somebody wants to be there to pray for them, and just,
Absolutely.
And so I think all of us, you guys, can do something like that. Even if we can't see ourselves adopting, we can do our part to go and encourage, or go and mentor,
Be a
or go
mentor.
and, even help them to, get their driver's license, or things like that.
Yeah.
There's something that we can do if we can't.
Absolutely. Well, and they have these professional clothing closets, if you will. There's one at Heinz, and her name is Anita, but she will allow you to go in and pick out clothes for interview, just things like that. Or like you said, be a mentor.
Yeah.
Invite them over for, family holiday gatherings, or have them over for a Sunday dinner. Things like that. Just basically invite them into your family.
Yeah, to let them feel family and feel love, because some people literally have never felt love.
Right.
And if you got enough, then why not share?
share to show you care, right?
Yes, exactly. Okay, you guys, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back with more Woman to Woman with Joanne.
During a public health crisis, it can be hard for those facing domestic abuse to know what to do. Being confined in the same space as an abuser can increase threats to safety, and leaving an abusive relationship during a crisis can be even more difficult than normal. You can help. Ask them how they want to connect and be creative. Be supportive and believe them. Help them think through how to stay safe. Following these tips, you can help victims of domestic violence stay safe during COVID-19.
Okay, you guys, we are back, and we're still here with the lovely Miss CJ Fox. So CJ, talk to us about your book. You are an aspiring author of the book titled Obliterate the Odds. Talk to us about where that title came from, and then just talk to us about your journey in writing your book.
Yeah, absolutely. it took me a really long time to be vulnerable enough to share that story. I wrestled with God for a really long time on that.
Yes.
I said, I'm not doing this. I don't want to talk about this. The past is the past. It doesn't dictate my future. And it's not something that I need to, dwell on. Right. And I was walking down the stairs one morning and I went to go fix some coffee and it just hit me. It was just like, you have got to write this down.
Yes.
And I went, fine. Can I make my coffee first? So I made my coffee and I was sitting at the little bar area and I said, okay, well, what do you want me to write? I'm having this internal dialogue and immediately it hit me of, okay, what are the statistics for foster kids?
Right.
Where should I have been versus where I am? And so in doing that, I found out that, what we talked about earlier, 2/3 of kids who age out within a year end up in jail, dead, or homeless.
Yes.
Right. So, that was one statistic that just blew me away. And then, things like, I think there's like 30% of them graduate high school and they have this certain percentage of becoming an alcoholic. And I was actually speaking to the former executive director of Sunnybrook at a chamber event. And I don't know what made me open up to him, but he said, I was telling him about my story and how I'd gone to college after being in foster care. And he goes, oh, you're less than 1% of the population or the foster care population. I said, what are you talking about? He said less than 1% of foster children graduate from college. And so that is what spurred the title Obliterate the Odds.
Yes.
Because it doesn't matter where you come from. If you attach yourself to the right people,
Yes.
You can find a way out.
That's
Absolutely. Right. And so that's the title of the book. And it comes from, again, those statistics of where a foster child is likely to end up. The story is not my own completely. It's written based on my story, and some of the stuff in there are things that actually happened to me. But it's written from the perspective of Sam. Sam's the character in the book, and you see them kind of go through this story of being in foster care and coming in and out of it, and then being around people that are on drugs, and you're wondering, is Sam going to engage or
Right.
and then Sam's best friend actually ends up taking their own life. And so you see Sam really struggling with a lot of, things that could have spun them out of control.
Right.
But because they end up, finding certain people and having that internal strength to get through, that's the hope for the book. You see Sam's triumph, and hopefully, get inspired from that.
Right.
And then learning how to connect with the foster children too through that story, because you kind of see what they're thinking.
That's awesome. So, CJ, what advice, how would you encourage either a young lady who's in foster care and wants to obliterate the odds? And how would you encourage a parent who is considering adopting or, becoming a foster parent? How would you encourage those people?
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking to young girls, I actually have 3 daughters of my own. They're 15, 13, and 12, and obviously going on 30, 20, and 26. Of course. But they're incredible people, and so I do have the privilege and blessing of hopefully inspiring them in some way. But it's just really helping them understand their own strength and helping them develop skills to develop that confidence.
Right.
Because it doesn't matter what anybody else says about you at that point, you know in your heart that you have this skill set and this intellectual property to be able to do whatever it is that you set your mind to.
Right.
And I think we unfortunately are in a society where there's so much pressure on girls to look a certain way.
Yes.
And, we talked about the duck face and posing a certain way and looking this way or that. But helping them realize it's not about that. It's about your skill set that's going to get you somewhere.
Right.
So, getting in school, it doesn't matter if you have $25 in your pocket like I did. Find those people like the dean in 2003 who helped me, get there. There are people who want to help you. You just have to find them.
That's right.
And then, what I would say to parents thinking about this, or even those who are like, there's no way I could ever foster. There's so many people. In fact, I was speaking to someone the other day. They said, gosh, I could never foster. I'd get too attached. That's so common. If I had $1 every time I heard that, and I just look at them and I go, if you think that you're going to become too attached, then you're perfect for this.
Right.
That's a whole saying that's out there now.
Definitely.
Because we need people to get attached. We need people who care and have that passion to change the trajectory of that child's life.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, you can't reach, rescue, or restore every child,
That's right.
but you can make the difference in the life of one
That's right.
in some way.
Each one reach one. Just try.
Just
You
try.
know, to
Yeah.
just reach one. Well, CJ, this has been awesome. Tell everybody when you expect to release your book and then how they will be able to get your book.
Yeah, so the fingers crossed. I'd really hoped it'd be out last year, but we ended up taking the book into a different direction. So we're looking at the end of the year, having it completely finished and ready for production. Hoping it'll be on Amazon and then of course through some other avenues as well. But all of that will be on the Obliterate the Odds Facebook page and website.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, CJ, thank you so much for coming to encourage us and give us the how-to and what we need to do to get more involved in this foster care system and helping these aging out children to get what they need in order to be successful. I'm just excited that we were able to have this conversation, and I'm glad that you guys were able to be a part of it. So thank y'all so much for joining us for another episode of Woman to Woman with Joanne. I'm so excited to see where everything is going and growing. So y'all like this, share this, and talk about us. Y'all talk about Woman to Woman with Joanne. We are here to encourage and inspire. Love y'all so much. Bye.
Thank you.
If you would like to be a guest on the show, or if you'd like to sponsor an episode, please reach out to us. You can email us at joanne@womantowomanwithjoanne.com.